be talking about all about flowers. And now I have promised you guys this video for so very long. Thank you for your patience, those of you that are waiting for me. But we're going to be talking about just all the things that you need to know in a very organized step-by-step fashion when you are doing flowers for an event or a wedding at home. When you're doing flowers, whether for yourself or for a friend, your daughter, whomever, what is the theme of the wedding? What is the overall aesthetic? Is it kind of a garden, dinner party style wedding? Is it very kind of boho? Is it modern? What is the overall theme? Once that is established, what are the general colors that the bride or you want for the wedding? So I like to kind of do a lot of research beforehand before you kind of sit down and figure out what flowers you want to use. So you're going to have a very strong vision of your theme and your colors. Next, you're going to start to dive into what flowers based on your color palette are available for that season. Generally, most of the United States can access the same types of flowers based on the various seasons. For example, peonies are always one of the most beloved flowers, and those usually aren't really available until May through probably July, starting to push it into August, and then they come back again in November for some white and red ones, kind of burgundy ones come back in the fall. But you need to kind of do your research and know what flowers are available so you know what you're working with. Once you do that, you're going to need to start to work on your quantities. My biggest advice for saving money when you're doing flowers on your own is that you really need to take the time and really map out exactly how many flowers that you need for your entire event or wedding. So let's take a wedding for example. What I like to do is I like to just sit down with pen and paper and make a whole list from start to finish what exactly I need for the wedding. So for example, we're going to start at the ceremony. And for the ceremony, we're going to start and we're going to walk through all what I like to call the personals. So the bride bouquet, the bridesmaid bouquets, how many boutonnieres do you need? Does the officiant need a boutonniere? Do you have flower girls? Are you going to make like a little corsage or mini posy bouquet for the moms? Do the dads have boutonnieres? Does your grandma have a boutonniere or a wrist corsage? Does the ring bearer? Like, go through every single person that is going to wear something special, write that down and start taking notes for what type of flowers you want included in that bouquet. And again, this takes the most time and the most research, but doing so you're gonna, in the end, gonna save the most money, not run into the problem in the end where you're short on flowers or you didn't order enough, etc. Start at the ceremony. Think about all the places that you want flowers at the wedding. Let's say you want to do a little arrangement at the welcome table, you wanted a flower crown, you wanted a couple ceremony pieces. So you go there and then you think about the reception. Okay, so what vessels are we using on the wedding? Are we using these, 6-inch in diameter footed bowls? Okay, so I have, 16 tables. So I'm gonna have 16 bowls. How many flowers do I feel like it's gonna take to fill the bowls? And you kind of start to get an eye by looking at centerpieces that you might want to mimic and legitimately counting. Okay, it looks like there's about 4 garden roses there. It looks like they have, a decent amount of olive or seeded eucalyptus, and then it looks like maybe like 2 anemones, maybe 3 ranunculus. So you literally count out and then divide that amount by your 16 centerpieces. And then for the bouquets, you do the same. Kind of look at your bouquet and you kind of generally are going to be using the same ingredients throughout the whole wedding. So you're physically coming up with how many stems you think you will need of your white garden roses, your pink garden roses, your peonies, your anemones, your 6 bunches of eucalyptus. So that is the hardest part and the hardest work, and there's no I feel like there's not like a huge trick or a side tip I can give you besides being very strategic and not just guesstimating, but really having your order written down and ready to go, and then also having backups ready. Where do you buy your flowers from? So if you have a resale license and wholesale license, you can shop at your local wholesale flower mart. And if you have one in one state, you can shop at one in another state. It's usually not a problem. That is obviously the best place to get to walk in, place an order ahead of time, walk in, get your flowers. I usually try to place my flower order for a wedding a month ahead of time. And of course, let's say if the wedding is on Saturday, you're gonna want your flowers to come in no later than Thursday. Wednesday, definitely by Thursday. So that's a general time frame. Place your order like a month ahead. And sometimes like a week before, I would get a call saying, you know, I'm not able to find these garden roses, let's do a backup, and it would give me time to kind of figure out my backup plan. So a wholesale mart is obviously your ideal first place to get flowers. Here in San Diego, there is a local wholesale mart. It's called San Diego Wholesale Flowers, and they are open to the public. The rates aren't as good on flowers, but they're still better than say, and your options are still better than say just going to a random grocery store. So that's another option, is to look for public wholesale markets. A third option, and I've shared this a million times here before, but I really am excited about them, and I think it is such a great option for those of you looking to do weddings, is Petal Driven. Petal Driven is an online wholesaler that anybody can shop at, and they will ship directly to your house. Now, I've used them now multiple times. Their quantities are higher as far as their minimums, but again, if you're doing a big event or wedding, this should be your go-to person. I'm offering free shipping and a discount below, so be sure to look at that code if you're on here and you're looking for a place to order really good flowers from. They have all the varieties, and they're the nicest people. You could always call them and see if they can get certain things that you don't see online, etc. So check out Petal Driven. And my last idea would be, besides like a supermarket or something, which I just don't recommend, the flowers will not stay as fresh if you buy them a couple days before the wedding. But you could always go into a local florist and ask to order through them. You will definitely be paying a premium that way, but if you're really like have the budget and that doesn't bother you, then you could always do it that way as well. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna focus now more on your schedule and your timing. So like I mentioned, if you have a Saturday event, you're gonna want to get the flowers 2 days before. If you're doing them out of your home, which I know most likely most of you are, and you don't have a cooler or access to a cooler, you don't want them around or outside of a cooler for very long. So usually, typically 2 days will be fine. And that also gives your flowers time to open. They come a lot of times very tight. It usually takes a couple days to get them to open. So what happens is your flowers will arrive, let's say Thursday. What you're gonna wanna do Thursday is they all usually come wrapped in packages or wrapped in newspaper. You're gonna wanna process, what they call process, all of your flowers. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna trim all the rubber bands off the bottom. So you're gonna wanna try to strip some leaves, maybe some thorns on roses if you have time, and you put everything in just big buckets of water, like those old painting buckets that you can find at Home Depot or whatnot. Sometimes your florist or the wholesaler that you're selling for will have extra ones. You can always ask them if you can have them, but make sure every single stem of every single rose and greenery piece is submerged into water. It doesn't need to be like soaking, but you know, the bases definitely need to be covered. So you're gonna process all of your flowers that day on Thursday, and then you're just gonna let everything sit in the most coolest place you can find in your house or your garage. Out of direct light is always best. Then the day before is when I like to start to work on all of the centerpieces. So I work on the centerpieces first, and then I usually end it with the personals and the bouquets, because those are the most sensitive. Now keep in mind, when you're doing this, you're gonna wanna kind of mentally say, okay, I'm doing 5 bouquets later and I need approximately this many roses, this much greenery. I kind of try to pull aside some really good looking chunks of things for the personals, for the bouquets, because I don't want all the really good flowers to get used up in the centerpieces. I want to definitely save the cream of the crop for the bouquets, because those will be like front and center. So I like to try to separate those aside a little bit, and then I have like, okay, this is what I've got to work with for the rest of this stuff. But again, if you planned well, you should kind of know in your head, this is how many flowers approximately, and maybe order a little bit buffer, just in case some flowers came bad or whatnot. I always recommend that. If the event is Saturday, Friday, I would start building all of my centerpieces. If you're working with Oasis or using things that have enough water, that should be totally fine. Start building them in the morning. It takes a long time to kind of get going. If you can recruit an assistant or two, that's always helpful. In the past, I've done so for big weddings, and even if they don't have a ton of flower experience, I can kind of build a mock-up and have them just start it. Or I could show them how to at least do the greenery base, and then I would go in and do all the flowers. So that's another idea for you if you have like a big event on hand and definitely need some extra hands to help. Late afternoon, evening, that's when you want to start doing your boutonnieres, bouquets. I wouldn't do them any sooner than that. If you have time the day of the wedding, to do those, you can always do them then, but I've always found the night before is totally fine. As long as you finish them, you leave the stems long enough and you store them kind of in a glass cylinder vase with enough water, you should be good to go. Now the day of the wedding, I kind of go back and I look at all of my centerpieces, and sometimes like maybe some of the hydrangeas don't look as good, and I pull out some of the just kind of wilty looking flowers. There's usually not many, if not just one or two, and then I'll replace with a few extras that I had on hand. So that's what I do day of. And then I also usually wrap all the bouquets with the ribbon. I wrap the boutonnieres that I had stored in the refrigerator that I made the night before with their ribbon or their string, and secure it with their pins so that they're all ready to go, do their final trim, so that everything is ready to go kind of by mid-morning for drop off at the venue. Lastly, I just want to reiterate some tools that you will need when you're doing your own event. Is you're going to need those large buckets. Depending on how much you order, I feel like you can kind of do your estimations, but having probably like 8 to 10 for like a decent size event buckets on hand for water that you can stack all your flowers and greenery in once they arrive at your house is definitely crucial. Make sure to have those on hand. You're going to want to have a cool workspace with some extra folding tables or surfaces to work on. You're going to want to have a very good pair of floral shears. My favorite ones I've linked below on my Amazon page. They are tried and true, have been my go-to shears for years. They're a little bit pricier, but trust me, a good pair of shears will go a long way. If you're doing a wedding, you're gonna definitely wanna have floral tape to wrap your bouquets and boutonnieres in. Tall cylinder glasses or just old vases laying around that you can have place all the bouquets once they're done in. Once they're done, have them sitting there, it kind of holds them snugly. You're gonna wanna have ribbon or twine or whatever you're going to use to wrap all the bouquets. Keep in mind you're going to need more than you think, and for example, make sure that you know, or the bride knows, if they want a big bow attached, if they want it just a single ribbon done tight. Kind of calculate how much yardage you think you're going to need, and then a lot of the bouquets are secured with those pearled pins, so you're going to have those on hand, and then some longer ones for the boutonnieres. Don't get the short ones. The short ones are too short and hard to attached to men's suits or shirts, so get the longer ones. If you're doing a ceremony piece, you can buy those Oasis large cages. They have an Oasis with a cage around it, and then those sometimes will be secured on top of an arch. You need to have several zip ties for those. Those take a lot of muscle and power, and the zip ties will be the only things that will secure those to what you have. So make sure to have long zip ties on hand. And then of course you're gonna need all your vessels, your centerpiece vessels, any bud vases or things that other flowers are gonna go on. And I think that that's it. So I wish you the best of luck. I'm so open to answering any questions. I hope this has been helpful for you. Just dive in, go in with confidence, and you will be surprised how fun this is, how life-giving, fulfilling this is. And I also highly suggest, if it is your wedding, that you really enlist a helper to help you, because I want you to enjoy your day. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you found this helpful, and we'll see you guys again next time with a video more on the business practices of owning your own flower business. All right, bye guys.